was. What a angry, frustrated person he was about. Like, how could you get so angry about getting refused that? Like, I don't know, if I was a super badass and I don't know, and a company declined me or questioned my abilities, I wouldn't get angry about it. I mean, I don't know. It seems so outrageous to me that it would go to the level that she took it. But maybe it was just casual first, putting it on Facebook or whatever. I don't know. I didn't actually read the whole thing, but
Yeah.
but he seemed to go on about. I got the picture from the interview with Ken Beck that he's a very analytical person to the point where you get overwhelmed with the analytical mind. He just completely takes it to a degree in which it dehumanizes the person or himself. It's like, don't go that far. Just stop looking into it so deeply. I don't know. Like, I've done a lot of
I
research.
didn't get that at all, because he had a passionate reaction, right, to the idea of having to be interviewed, and then he experienced all the anger, we'll call it passion, and then he goes, oh, what was that about? And that's when he starts deconstructing it and putting it to good use, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like, he's in a lot of ways your typical programmer, right? Somebody who for much of their life was lacking in emotional development, right? And that he's only in his adult life started to discover, what it is to be fully human. And so I think there's, I'm not going to, the term that comes to mind is a retardation, right? And that's not, I don't mean it as in he is a retarded person, right? It's as a, that there is a kind of a developmental disability there. According to him, right? And a lot of this is just kind of taking his word for, what he's been through and all of that stuff. Interesting that I had never heard about him having a breakdown anywhere, right? I mean, that seems like it was almost a secret that he was revealing there.
Well, it sounded like hasn't been public with it at all. And he's just now, I think he even said he's just now starting to, share that information a little bit. But he didn't want to get into his backstory, though, about his childhood. And, I may be biased here because I've grown up with certain education around, or like my mom was heavily involved in landmark education. And that was like a lot of self-development, self-help kind of work. And to me, it's like obvious, if you're going to, don't let your childhood end up destroying your decisions for the rest of your life. But in essence, I think you just need a catalyst of some kind, something to make a change for yourself. Often people identify their childhood as a cause, right? But you could pick any cause and make that the catalyst for change of who you want to be. But since, you can kind of relate your history into childhood decisions and track it all that way, like, who knows if your childhood decision was the exact factor that made you who you are today. It could have been a multitude of factors, but often it's funny that I see people struggling with this. This should be like education in school. It's almost like a problem that our society has. That to find out the hard way later on versus getting the tooling needed in the beginning to know, how to handle your anger, all that stuff.
Yeah, I guess teachers would have to be equipped very differently for them to be able to identify, here are the problems you have, and here are some things we can do to try to address that. And parents too, right? I think that's probably a big part of the problem, is that the people that you're around growing up don't necessarily have the tools to help you with those kinds of things.
Exactly.
And so you wind up being 40 years old before you start to really start to feel.
But you know what? I've been doing the math, not to to diverge from Kent Beck yet, but doing the math, we are actually not with our parents as much as we are with other people. Like if you're in school all day, I mean, kids get out at 2:30 p.m. maybe. But, out of the whole, I can't calculate the amount of hours for the week, but really we just have the weekends and some nights and mornings, which are really filled with the necessities of life. Yeah. Eating, getting ready for bed or waking up in the mornings and playing or whatever. So I find that parents may not be as much involved as we think.
Yeah. Daryl, do you have kids?
I have a single child, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And
she hasn't grown up enough for me to realize all of the problems.
Yeah, you're just thinking about what it's going to be like. And
right.
Yeah. Thinking about homeschooling or anything like that as a result of what you're thinking here?
No, but maybe a mix would be healthy depending on the age. I don't know.
Yeah.
If we decided to go traveling, like for a couple of years, that'd be awesome. We could get the homeschooling thing in at that time as well. But that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's a demanding thing to put on. It is easy to outsource the schooling of your children.
I think the key thing is their friends. If you, like you say, so the friendship groups they get into, and
yeah,
right.
and perhaps the underlying assumptions of the school, maybe.
Yeah, their belief system over there.
Mm-hmm.
But hey Dave, what made Kent Beck accept, or was there like some kind of trick in the fifth time's a charm, or?
That is actually a pretty interesting lesson about the thing. And he had never responded at all to any of my prior emails. And when he did respond to this one, he told me that he was like, yeah, all of your previous emails were just very impersonal, that they were, his words weren't that they had a form letter quality, but I mean, that's what they were, right? I sent him the same emails that I sent to everybody. And, and this one was, that Jed Reynolds had tweeted saying, hey, look at this article. This would make for a great podcast episode. And so when I sent the email to Kent this time, it was, a listener had suggested that, hey, talking about this subject that you wrote about would be really neat. And so,
yes.
it was a person to person email. And he said that, yeah, that connection, that it was, that it was really a personal outreach instead of just, asking him for something was.
And on the topic that he was talking about too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. I was not aware of that post. Actually, I saw his post about his cancer or whatever his illnesses and stuff.
So how many have I lost sound?
No, sorry.
Daryl just went silent.
I was cleaning my keyboard and I hit mute.
Okay. Yeah. How many of the 12 people are in the Agile Manifesto have you got so far, Dave?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably over half. Both of the pragmatic programmer guys, Uncle Bob, Jim Kapleen, right? Kent Beck. Yeah, Ward Cunningham was another one. I'd have to go look at the list to see who.
Go through the list and get the rest.
I should probably do that.
Yeah.
Have you had Jeff Patton on?
No, haven't even asked.
Oh man, he kind of invented the story mapping, user story mapping.
Oh.
And I just got done reading his book. And I tried out the exercises with my team and people at work, and it was awesome. He would be probably interesting to get on too.
Cool.
Isn't he? He's not on one of the founding manifesto people, is he?
I don't know. Oh, and I did get a response from David Anderson too, by the way, Daryl, since we're talking about guests. And he was basically, his schedule was too slammed, but he's open to, let's talk about it later. So I'll ping him back, and it may happen yet.
4 more times.
Yeah.
Hey,
Basically.
hey, Daryl, what was the story mapping guy again?
Jeff Patton. There's a book called User Story Mapping. What is the full title?
Is it JEFF?
Yeah,
Patton?
it's discover the whole story, build the right product. It's kind of like a product development methodology, technique, I should say, for building a backbone of high level activities, and then lower level is your details for each activity. And you can have user types and all sorts of things mapped out, and then an impact or a goal you want to reach. And you can now that you have a spine and its detail, you can start to like pick and choose what you want out of what to develop and discuss as well. And then on top of that, draw lines through it and start putting things into releases or milestones or group them however you want. And it's really, really powerful and fun. It was, we went through the exercise suggested in the book to map out the activities it takes to wake up in the morning, from when you wake up in the morning to when you leave the door for work. And that was really funny. One of the tasks came up called morning relations. And what's funny is that we put it all on the board with sticky notes and everything, and the vice president and some other, management came in to do a meeting as we were leaving. And I was going to take all the stickies off the board, and he's like, "No, leave it up. It looks cool." So I did, and then there's this rule about you must clean up the conference room, before you leave. So someone took a picture of it on the board and said, "Whoever, put this." Left all this, please clean it up or whatever, and sent it to everybody. But one of those stickies on there was like morning relations and all this stuff. Pretty funny. But anyway,
that's cool.
Give me a minute. I've got to grab that thing from the oven.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah,
cool. The bun in the oven.
So, what other podcasts have you been listening to, Dave?
Let's see. What have I been listening to? So one that just really has been blowing me away that I absolutely adore. Thaddeus Russell is this guy's name. His podcast is called Unregistered with Thaddeus Russell. And he wrote a book.
Can I put that in?
Oh, yeah. He's so thoughtful, such a thinking person. And completely counterintuitive. He's a very different thinker. So he wrote a book called A Renegade History of the United States, where he his thesis is that the contributions to culture and progress and to who the culture of the United States is thanks in large part to the prostitutes and the drug dealers and the people who kind of are outside of the norms, the rule breakers kind of thing. And so that's kind of the direction with the podcast too, is that he talks to people who are not just your run of the mill. He's had pornographers and different people from porn stars and drug dealers and all kinds of stuff that are really just kind of outside the polite, acceptable company, and his tagline on the intro to the podcast is that he's looking for people who don't break the rules just to be troublemakers, but he's looking for people who make him think, right? Which I think is kind of neat. Yeah, he has some very counterintuitive ideas about culture and society and all of that kind of stuff, but it's well thought out.
Yeah. Anything else?
Recent mention of Bitcoin on that show, or?
I don't know that he's directly addressed it. As a financial supporter of his show, I'm in his Facebook group. Actually, I don't think there's been anything there about it either. This other podcast that I'm in, that's all anybody wants to talk about is cryptocurrencies. But yeah, are you guys into cryptocurrency at all?
Not me. No. I've listened to a few podcasts on it, like just actually the whole idea of blockchain, I suppose. source controls blockchain in a way, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah. An append only ledger. Well, I guess Git is not really append only. There's a lot of magic you can do with it, but I mean,
but
that's
the idea is the magic's the tweaks, sort of.
Yeah. Without all the crypto to make it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm not into Bitcoin, but I just watched the other day. That's why I asked, this Netflix movie called Banking on Bitcoin. And it was actually not about, Bitcoin per se. I mean, what it is and, all its intricacies. And it was more about the cypherpunks and all, like the history of it. And then also who this mysterious person behind it was. And then a lot of people going to jail, and about the two twin brothers that were, trying to regulate, build a company about regulating it. And it's really interesting to see around from 2008 to 2014 some of the facts that around it. And it's more a political movie than anything else, but or documentary, I should say.
Yeah. Several years ago, I had 2 Bitcoin, and I wound up just selling them, getting out of it. And man, that was bad. But and so more recently, I have a little bit. I haven't dug deep on the tech behind it or trying to figure any of that stuff out. I want to, but I haven't. At one point, I was really thinking about trying to get into mining, but never took any tangible step. Never actually did anything with it. So yeah, I have a little bit of crypto, but not, more Ethereum than anything is what I have, but not enough to be really worth mentioning at all. So yeah, it's interesting. When I went independent and I started my business, I was, one of the things I was thinking about was, man, the extra cash that I have in my business that I'm not just distributing to myself, I ought to put that into Bitcoin, right? I was thinking that, and I never did. And holy cow, if I had, man, might be a millionaire now.
A lot of people thinking that's what's driving the money up, I think.
Yeah.
Dave, behind you, that poster on the wall, what's that one about?
That is this past summer, I went to the Kansas City Developer Conference, and in Kansas City, Missouri. And it was in one of the rooms, which happened to be the room that I was speaking in. There was an artist in there that just kind of drew the talk as it proceeded.
Wow.
And so this was a real time that she was just drawing stuff related to the talks in that room, all throughout the conference. And
does she earn a living that way?
Yeah. I believe so.
Just to do that in like real time.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
It was really amazing. Yeah. So yeah, her, I believe she does, different events and stuff like that, and that she does, make a living off of it. But yeah, she's really talented and really neat. I was kind of surprised when I walked in the room. I was like, well, what is this? This woman in the corner, what's she doing? It was pretty neat. And so then the speakers got to keep, their art of their talk. So that was cool.
Okay. That's your talk behind there. Is it? No.
Well, yeah, that one that I have is my what I've learned from interviewing over,
Okay.
I expressed it as a hexadecimal, 0x100 developers, since at the time that I gave the talk, I had just crossed over 256 episodes.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I
remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was actually the idea for that topic was that Kyle Prinsloo, who was just on the show, and he actually just signed up as a supporter too. So I invited him to the Hangout. So he might show up here at some point. But he sent me an email saying, "Hey, would you like to write a blog post for my site? What I've learned from interviewing over 100 developers." And so I was like, "Yeah, good idea." So, wrote that post and, got that on his site, and then eventually that turned into a talk.
Okay.
So, yeah. And I'm going to do that talk again at IndieCode in Indianapolis in April, I think it is. So I think it wound up pretty cool. Lots of things to take away from all these conversations, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So what are some of the points behind it? I was trying to do it now, take act.
Let's see
Be
if I can.
consistent.
Let's see if I can zoom out a bit here.
Yeah.
Or I could just grab the camera.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So
yeah, can't read it.
I don't know. There was kind of some mention of, you know, that there's a bunch of book recommendations, you know, on the site, and you know, just oh, I'm still out, and you know, I guess I went through some lessons from some specific guests. One of the things that I really just, you know, like to think about a lot is Aslak Helisoy when he was on the show, and kind of his big you know, thing that he said, that his revelation that he talked about was test your understanding, and that developers are like children, and that, you know, as you're talking to a developer, right, that they're not always getting the message, right? And so that, you know, you should, in the same way that you wouldn't just tell your kid, hey, you got it. It's no, can you tell me what I was talking about there, right? To test your understanding. And so that was one of the centerpieces. One of the things that I think has really changed the way I lived my life is to you know, ask back, you know, did I understand this right? That kind of stuff. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wish everyone would do that.
Yeah.
Oh, hello.
You got the sweetie there.
Oh yeah. They just got back, and now there's no divider in any of the rooms. So,
yeah. Sean's here. What's happening, Sean?
Sean?
Not much. Checking Jordan earlier.
Your hair is short, man.
Yeah, I cut it this morning. I was gonna let it grow for a while, and then I just looked at it at Code Mash, and I'm like, God, this is too long.
That was what came to mind was, did you look like that at Code Mash? But I guess not. Yeah. And then just the mustache. That is a different look.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna cut that off tomorrow, but I thought I'd sport it for like a day just because I can.
See what it's like. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. We actually have a poll running on Facebook whether I should shave it or keep it. So it's probably going to go anyways, regardless of what the poll says. But I figured it'd be fun for a day to go to work and just be like, yeah, I'm doing a mustache right now. So
cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know at what point in time, unless you're like a police officer, you can't really pull off a single mustache, or like in the military or something. So
yeah,
it's really hard.
In India.
Oh yeah.
Norm.
As a white guy, I guess you just get, you know, like,
right,
you're gonna molest people.
You look like a perv. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yep.
Yeah. So I keep thinking that I'm going to shave this off when I lose enough weight that I don't look like I'm developing a double chin. So this is concealment for now.
Been there, for sure. So what am I jumping into here? What was I missing?
We started talking about Kent Beck and the conversation that I had with him, which I think you listened to it, right, Sean?
Yeah. I had a thought about that, but what have people been saying so far, or what do you guys? What's your feedback?
Oh, you tell us your thought.
Well, it was about specifically one piece of it, and it's not even so much that, but just the whole idea that fear leads to anger. Yeah, I've been thinking about that, and I don't actually think it's fear that does that. I mean, fear could lead to anxiety, or fear could lead to like running away or excitement, but I don't think it ever leads to really anger, right? It's more. I think that the root of anger is really if you have set expectations for something and those expectations are not met. So in the case with Kent Beck is it was probably closer to the fact, like, do you know who I am? like I have to do this. My expectation is that I would not have to do this. And it was that failed expectation that probably got him pissed off. Not actually, am I going to fail doing the thing? Because he's probably good enough not, to pass it. So anyways, that was just something that I was thinking about.
I think I think there's something to that. It's not necessarily. I think fear can lead to a lot of things, though, right? And I think anger would be among them. It's and yeah, expectations, sure, but at the same time, right? I mean, you asked me to do an interview, and it's like, well, okay, I'll do the interview. I expect to pass the interview, but maybe I do have some. Whether it's conscious or subconscious, right? Maybe there is some, oh my God, what if I fail? So I don't know. I wouldn't dismiss that fear leads to anger.
I took the point that the emotions are like a rough calculator, that you get information from your emotions, and then later on you can when you got time to stop and think it through, the emotions might not be right, but you get some information from it that you can unpack and dissect. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was one of his really, really good points, is that your emotions tell you something, but it's not always about the here and now. And you're feeling something that could be decades ago, that has nothing to do with the current moment, which I thought was really really insightful and true. But that still doesn't address whether fear leads to anger, which I think fear could lead to anything, and it can manifest itself. Well,
it's flight or fight, isn't it? Flight or fight is sort of the
yeah. Well, the whole thing, right? The whole point is that you can have something that you are feeling that is the primary emotion that can surface as something else if even if you are deliberate about your thinking and your actions and all of that. That's just kind of the meat machines that we are. Things bubble up in ways that are often unpredictable, and it really takes a lot of reflection to try to figure out what's going on. Of course, I think to what Daryl said earlier, right? That you can tell a story. It's kind of this post hoc reasoning that I can tell a story and kind of blame anything for how or for tell a story. I could probably take any emotion and come up with some plausible reason that led to something else, and who knows what really went on inside of my emotional self.
And who cares, as long as it does the job of whatever you're trying to do, which is, I guess, in this case, change his personality, change his, I don't know, his anger issues. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess if you're yelling, are you fucking kidding me at somebody, then that's something you want to work on.
And like I said, I think that a good way to do that is to actually just check what your expectations are. I've tried to think of through scenarios since that talk in my head about, okay, here's a scenario where I've known someone has gotten angry. Was it because they were afraid of something? No, it was always because if they had just never set expectations about what they were going to get into, if they didn't project into the future of something that their mind thinks is going to be there, then they, like, what they get mad at is the fact that those what they projected, what their mind said was going to be there, isn't actually there. And so then they get pissed off about it. And so, I see this all the time with, let's say just like my wife or something. If we're not, she has this expectation that we're going to leave at this particular time. And if that expectation is not met, it's like all hell breaks loose. But if she had never set that expectation, there wouldn't have been anything to get mad at. It's not like she's suddenly like, oh, we're late, when there's nothing going on or nothing to go to. It's always just some expectation that we have isn't met. So if you just
miscommunicated, it's the miscommunicated expectations. Or when one person has one picture of how things are and another has another, and like that's a dysfunctional thing that can go on for a long time. And because both people are getting something out of it without actually talking about where their expectations align, the thing keeps going on and on.
Yeah, and the Crucial Conversations book I recently finished.
Yes.
And plus some of that landmark education thing I was talking about earlier. It is really about taking away your story, taking away your, I mean, like Kent Beck said, you know, your emotions are going to be happening, and there might be an initial response, but the skill there is to learn how to first identify that that's happening, right? Maybe even mindfulness training can help there, but just being aware that that's happening, then you can almost step out of yourself and watch it happen as it's happening, and then make decisions about it, versus being in that moment for too long and being persuaded and by these things you don't have control over. And in that, then you know, first get the facts. You know, what is this interviewee and this interviewer? What are their facts, right? Well, why did you even ask me for an interview, right? Instead of just going off the wall and going crazy about it. And maybe you can legitimize it that way, and then have engaging, meaningful conversations about it versus letting it just explode right off the bat.
Yeah. Well, that's really the whole thing, right? I mean, if you're angry, you know, okay, be angry, right? That there's not necessarily anything wrong with being angry. It's the lashing out and causing you know, hurt feelings for somebody else, or you know, making them to be into a situation where they are a victim of abuse because of your anger.
No, I guess I do think that anger leads to hate, though. That makes sense. So just
that's funny. That was the one that I said that I had a hard time connecting.
Yeah, you didn't agree with yoga at all. Yoda at all.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, hate leads to suffering is easy. There's no. I don't think there's any question about that.
That.
anyways.
So yeah, it's interesting though that you know, things, you know, the other thing that that kind of stuck out to me as I listened back to the conversation, you know, was the whole the sentiment that I've been told this all my life, that feelings can't be wrong, right? And Kent was immediately, oh, that's bullshit, you know, which
he's quick on like he calls it how he sees it. It was
indeed
good,
yeah I think, you know, some people could have taken that as you know, being a nasty response to that, but I mean he's also, you know, an older man, that's, you know, that's kind of, you know, the way things are, but I don't know. I think it was a really, really good point that you feel something, but it's not here and now, right? Going back to that you know, it's not necessarily related to the situation, and I think that's probably the you know, it's a time shift on what that thing is. That's a big deal, and that matters. And I think that's where he really has a leg to stand on in saying that, you know, you know, your feelings aren't necessarily wrong, but they're not necessarily relevant.
And the other important thing you said is you can't necessarily debug yourself. Like he sort of went through that kid, that programmer that did the suicide note and all the logic for it, and how when you separated, look, just reading it, you can see there's all the holes in the logic, but the kid himself couldn't, you know.
Yeah.
That was when he used an example of fixing a bug. What was that example he was getting at? With you mentioned you can't
debug yourself necessarily or something.
Right, but he was saying the sequence of it. Well, anyway, I don't know if that's related to what you just said.
I think that was something else. I think that was the talking about I could be wrong, but I think that was kind of just the latency, right? That it's not instantaneous. That there is
Yes.
you know, as small as it seems, there is a ramp up time in getting to your emotion.
Interesting.
An ability to intercept, right? You know, to get in there and actually manipulate what's going on.
Mm.
Which I'm skeptical of that, right? I don't know that that's really the case. It's really to me, it's more a question of responding to what you feel rather than trying to direct what you feel.
There's definitely latency in the mind, though. Like,
Yeah.
just how long it takes to retrieve information. As you go older, it gets worse.
Or maybe that's better if you're trying to inject logic, as he says.
Yeah, he said something about that. Your cognitive abilities degrade as you
Yes.
become a developer. And it's something that I don't think anyone really talks about, right? One, because software development and stuff is so young that there aren't that many older players, right? And you know, that could be a whole new world. Like, what if we're not able to develop in our old age?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Just because we're too slow. I don't know. Or maybe focusing on code for so long actually does something to your cognitive abilities. You know, you're
So it sounds like you are an ageism apologist.
Ageism apologist. What is that? I never heard that term.
Well, it's you know, I'm trying to use the inflammatory language of that. You know, right? I mean, it's a thing that people talk about all the time, right? Ageism, that people are getting pushed out of their jobs because they're getting older and that kind of stuff, and they're discriminated against when they go into job interviews because they are an older person, which is real, right? There's no question about that. And I think, you know, what you're saying is that, well, maybe there is some rational reason that you should be a little skeptical of older programmers, and you know, everybody's an individual, and it's always going to be a different thing. But you know, I don't know. I just wanted to accuse you of being a defender of ageism.
I could be. Well, there needs to be more research. I suppose, at least in the software development area.
Yeah.
Speaking of, can I run something by you guys? Like, I found, like, I have an idea for an app, right? And I'm like, I really want to build it, and I don't normally code at home. I typically just read or you know, play music or watch TV. I don't do software development at home. So I'm kind of inspired and passionate about this, and I feel like it could help the environment a little bit. And then I'm like, all right, let me just try to design something. And I started just sketching, and then I wanted to do the front end. So I started to look into how to do that, even though I kind of know maybe Angular, and I just hit a brick wall because it's just too complicated to do it myself. I was just like, you know, what I gotta do, maybe I was gonna choose Angular because I knew Angular, and then I just to design something cool, I couldn't do it in Angular. I'm like, well, maybe I could do it bootstrap, and it was just too many steps to get something going from my mind and my idea into screen. So
as opposed to working with a team, that kind of is what you're saying. Just being responsible for everything is daunting. And
well, what did you guys suggest in how I can see this to fruition? Like, should I continue down the path of trying to build it myself, or should I seek help and pay others to kind of get it the way I see it? So I really just want to do a rapid prototype that, or maybe not even use technology first. I should actually validate the actual idea with just, you know, speaking to people and trying it out. Well, I could tell you the idea, but
so are you trying to learn front end, like a quick path into front end development? Was that part of the question, or is it?
Well, you know, I'm more of a back end developer, and
yes,
and so I I mean, I've worked in the front end for a while. Just I've always had the help of others. So, I wouldn't say I'm proficient in it. And then I just found it too daunting of a task to take on, to design it, because visually I want it to be user friendly, but to get there, I feel like I'm just lacking in the front end enough to make it user friendly. So I can't. I just stop there. I'm like, well, if I can't even get the front end working, I don't want to start from the back end. That's not how I work. I don't. Everything is dictated by the user experience and what they're going to be interacting with, not just developing a back end and a model in a sense.
It's only a model. So I think I'm similar.
Because I'm a back end person too, and to me, it's all about understanding the back end, and like the front end doesn't exist, but then it's hard to show anyone, which is why Dev Express, I went down all that path. But there's balsamic and things. If you just want to run it on the whiteboard, there's things like balsamic, which enables you to mock up the whole look and feel and explain it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I want a working prototype in a sense. So does that convert to some kind of HTML or?
No. So I think the fundamental question, the starting point, right, as to trying to figure this out is what is your objective? Right, you're talking about helping the environment and stuff like that. I mean, does that mean that you're going to be trying to get an enormous customer base and you're trying to give away software, or does it mean you're trying to get paying customers, or any of those kinds of things? Right, it's got to be clear what success entails, and I think without that, then there's really no way to answer any question that's that builds out from that foundation.
Right. Yeah, so what I was thinking was building an interface that doesn't actually have a lot of backend in there. It might just submit to me an email or something that says, hey, fulfill this request, and I in the background do it, and that can kind of physically do it, deliver this. So what it is there's Amazon boxes everywhere, right? And they don't really have a method to return the boxes. They do, but you have to give charitable donations in it and put all your junk in there and then give it away. I'd like to create a medium for exchange between people that are moving and people that need boxes, because a lot of times boxes are expensive. You're moving and you're in your last minute trying to find boxes from everybody. Here you have hundreds and thousands of people just throwing away boxes, especially during Christmas time. You drive around, everyone's throwing out their boxes. So I was going to collect them. I have a room of boxes right now, but just to keep a little bit of inventory, just to try out different patterns to see, do people want to pick it up from other people? Do they want it to be delivered to them by a third party? Just so I have different options to weigh. And so I don't even feel it's software yet, but I did want to create an interface, at least that someone could communicate to someone else that they needed a box or wanted to show their, to give up their box, right?
I had a similar idea, which I did in Discourse. So I just put all my computer books, not many, but it means I can buy more, see, in Discourse. So I've just sort of set up a library section in my I'm using Discourse as part of my company communication. So I set up a library, and no one's borrowed anything yet, but it's you could actually set it up in Discourse, but then you're sort of locked into their look and feel. But it is sort of just to quickly give what I've got available and ability to search and that sort of thing. Yeah. Right.
Just at least give them an app that can.
You've got tags and. It looks modern, and you've got membership and everything. So, yeah.
I had a similar thought about collecting boxes and trying to trying to turn around and give them to small businesses that do shipping, or sell them at a highly discounted rate. But so the app would be to, I have boxes, come pick them up. Is that the idea?
The idea,
or well, at least to start,
idea was for me that's moving to go look up boxes that I can go just pick up from somebody, or as someone that just has a crap load of boxes, I can give them up and someone that needs them can take them. But that's just my initial idea. I feel like, something needs to be validated there about how people want to use it. I can see there's a lot of issues, like Amazon boxes has your name and address on it. What do you do with that? And, I would just take it step by step, basically.
Yeah. Moving is such a rare event too in people's lives. So like, and then being like, I'm going to save boxes so that other people can, there's a lot that could be, but it would be a good problem to figure out about what to do with all of the boxes other than just putting them out. Like, I assume that you're recycling or trash people will pick them up, but
most people I've asked just trash them. I mean, I don't even think the recycling, actually, you're not supposed to recycle.
Here's what you do. You plant your veggies in them. Something in the garden.
Yeah. A mulching system for cardboard boxes. Just add water.
Who knows why people want to use them, I suppose.
In the blender. And
Will it blend?
One simple way that you could do that actually is just set it up as a Facebook group.
Right.
Like if you're on any local like garage sale, I don't know if you've got these, but like in the town where I'm at, we have like garage sale sites or whatever, and so people just post crap for sale. They'll go out and be like, oh, I mean, and like trade and sell and buy and whatever. But if it was like a box thing, like, hey, you're moving and you want boxes, I'll save them for you. Just post in here that you need them and. Right. But there has to be probably something in it for the person saving them to be like, I'm going to take my time to save these boxes and set them aside so that I can let this person move,
Yeah, that's why I wanted super simple interface. Like, I have boxes, small, medium, large, or it can fit this in it, and it's like a few seconds to just for somebody to advertise they have a box, and then it stays up for however long. It's almost like Craigslist, but just easier, and not, filtered out. It's basically filtering out all the craziness that's in Craigslist just to an actual certain domain of boxes.
And then you have to have enough people within the particular region to actually give the boxes. So it'd be a bit of a challenge. I don't know, like when I thought about it for like small businesses, like the approach I'd have taken there was, call up small businesses, find out whether that do shipping, find out what they are using for boxes, what it costs them, and then figure out, well, is there a way that I could beat the price of what they're paying for their retail boxes and then get recycled boxes to, and then potentially just turn that around as a passive income trickle feed to people that are saving them. So
there's a model that's happened near us. It's a large kind of warehouse, and there's a diabetes foundation. So you take all your secondhand stuff and you just drop it off there, and they give you a little coupon every time you go as a discount off their shop. So it all just I did try. They throw away stuff that they can't think that they can easily sell, but it's it's just a secondhand shop, and the proceeds go to the Diabetes Foundation. So it's sort of a whole lot easier than figuring out how to make the connection with the end user, because you just take it to the place, and then the place sorts it. Yeah.
It's like like back in the day, you could collect cans, and then you could take these cans to like these machines and drop them in the machine, and you get 50 cents or something out of them for collecting all these damn cans. that'd be kind of if somehow you could turn the boxes into money, such as you could pay people. Like people will go out of their way to go collect boxes for 50 cents of you know what I mean? Like I got all these boxes. I'm just gonna save them over here. I'll stop by this place, trade them in. I'll get my money out of it. Sweet, go. You know.
Okay, so you need the box shop. The box shop.
But yeah, I mean, Sean has identified the fundamental problem here is how do you get, put it out on the corner for the garbage men to take away is the easiest solution to getting rid of your boxes. Can you either make it easier than that or give them something in return that makes the effort that they put into sharing their boxes worth it, right? And so, I mean, that is the fundamental question there, right? Assuming that there is an answer to that, then the next question becomes, and I'm not sure there is, but if there is, then the next question is, well, you're talking about a super simple interface, and you're also talking about, well, I need to use Angular or something like that, right? It sounds to me like those things are at odds, right? I mean, it sounds like this could be just post forms and just plain HTML that's posting forms and stuff like that, right? So I think that might be overcomplicating it. Is the question you originally asked?
Yeah, that is true, and how to stylize that there to make it look a little bit nice. I mean, I guess that should be easy to do.
There's mobile templates you can just buy, like. Here's some CSS and some HTML structure for your page. Just use this kind of a thing.
Yeah, I searched a lot of those, but they're all for like giant or lots of things going on. I was just thinking like simple 2 boxes, but now that I'm talking about it out loud, it sounds like it's so easy to do. Maybe we'll just ditch the frameworks and go raw and real.
Yeah, and then don't forget, like, what is the LinkedIn guy said if you're not embarrassed of your first product, how it looks and stuff like that, you've shipped too late or whatever.
Yeah, you've shipped too late. Yeah.
Or you've spent too much money or time. Yeah.
If you don't feel kind of awkward, then you've spent too much time on it.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a good point.
Reid Hoffman.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
That's the guy's name. Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah. Oh, was he Netflix?
No.
No.
Well, he was the LinkedIn guy. I don't think he had anything to do with Netflix.
Oh, okay.
I think he has a lot of investments in a lot of other things. So he might have a stake in a lot of things that.
Dave, your developer on Fire site, you developed that from scratch, or are you using some kind of template or?
I used Jekyll Bootstrap, which is basically a repository that you can clone, and then then I did some modifications to it. The biggest things that I changed is adding a podcast feed, right? Putting all of the elements into the feed, right? Because the Jekyll Bootstrap site wasn't, it had a blog feed on there, and so I was adding enclosures and all the kinds of things into the feed that are necessary to to let podcast players go get the media.
So really, I think the root, aside from getting a business idea into software, but like I just feel like it's so hard to get something on the screen. Like you have to jump through hoops, you have to learn a lot, you have to why can't we just draw things and have that be the HTML element right off the bat, and have a tool that says, okay, well, this is some SVG, whatever kind of image.
There's your idea. There's your idea. You've got a physical pen that you're picking up, and that's the bold. Well, I don't know, just like to make it physical so that someone like the lady that did the poster on Dave's wall, someone is doing an HTML page as an artist would do it. So brushes, like you stand at the easel and you pick up your brushes and away you go, and you finished your web page.
I've actually seen prototype software that does that exact thing, where they just drew the UI elements and then they just became real via some sort of mechanism. But
yeah, Visual Basic 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I mean, we did it in the old days, actually.
But hand draw, you know, not actually like a, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, HTML just has so much history, right? And and CSS and all of those things that it's it's doing a lot of things that it was never designed to do in the beginning.
Yes.
And
yes.
So much complexity has built around that it's well, and I guess that's what Microsoft was trying to do when they created XAML, was to start over. Although I don't know that they actually solved the problem, but I think that's kind of the idea, But
is that kind of like one of those things that just go in cycles? Well, we're going to develop software development in-house. Now we're going to outsource it. And you just oscillate between those two things.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that. Yeah.
Thanks for the ideas, guys. Probably go back to the drawing board. Get the idea actually more into fruition, then use technology. Skip technology, validate the idea first.
Yeah, I don't think you'd have to build anything before you actually can just try it out. Like, you can get a lot of people in your community on Facebook, for instance, and just say, this is what I'm trying to do, and then you can get people's like thoughts like, oh, this is stupid, or, well, what would help with your boxes, like, oh, if you came pick them up. I don't know, or what would make you save boxes and give them, or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
is it specifically Amazon boxes, or is it
no,
all sorts of boxes?
Any boxes. I just know that
yeah,
everyone's into getting things delivered to them now. So
yeah, we got all of those Barnes and Noble boxes, of course. So we gotta save those. It's not just boxes, though. It could be like there's little envelope packages and things like that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Packaging is really nice.
Could expand to like a million different uses, So.
right.
And then learn how to turn cardboard into construction material, so that you can build like temporary little homes for like homeless people or something.
Right. if the idea doesn't work out, I'll get that out.
You never know where to take. It's like, I've got a problem here. They were getting all these boxes. What can I do with them? It's just finding both sides of it, and then making it, worthwhile, I suppose, for somebody to actually be like, I'm going to save my boxes because I want to give them to Daryl.
They go to the homeless.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. If you can find a narrative that is, here's a cause you want to be involved in, then maybe that's the answer to why you save the box.
Like I said, it goes back to why back in the day people would collect cans a lot. It's like, because you could go and drop them off and make money. So,
yeah. My grandpa would go for walks and he'd dig through every trash can that he came across. It was funny.
And that was how Mr. Burns got his fortune back in The Simpsons. He lost it once, and he found out if he could just pick up enough cans and make enough money, and then he built and then he found out that you could use nets or these those little plastic rings. He found out that those could be used to catch fish and stuff like that. So he netted a bunch of them together and started sweeping the ocean.
That's awesome.
So, of course, he's not going to be turn a new leaf. He's Mr. Burns. So.
Cool.
Well, it's coming up on time. I gotta go.
Yeah, I think I should probably get going too.
Okay.
Say bye, Clark.
Bye.
Bye, sweetie.
Bye.
Yes, I need to go too.
All righty. Well, good talk.
All righty.
This was fun.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Until next time.
Bye.